What if I told you that in the middle of a congressional hearing about free speech, someone accidentally exposed a secret no one was supposed to mention? It started with a single awkward question. You can't remember if you're meeting with the president. The room went silent. Cameras zoomed in. The witness laughed it off. But what came next turned that harmless exchange into something much darker, a pattern of silence, evasion, and contradiction surrounding the mysterious Epstein Files. A list that was supposedly on her desk, then suddenly gone, and the question no one in that hearing seemed willing to answer: who's trying so hard to keep it buried? Because this wasn't just another chaotic moment in Congress, it was a crack in the armor, a glimpse into how power protects itself when the wrong people start asking the right questions.
Yields back. The gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Farage, thanks for being here, coming across the pond. I'm sorry to hear you're leaving the hearing early.
Well, there's not a question of leaving the hearing early, but I do have other things to do. Yes.
Oh, where are you going?
I'm so sorry about that.
It's okay. Where are you going?
It's not lunch, I promise you.
It's not lunch. You're not going to have lunch.
I don't think so, no.
No lunch.
Sad, isn't
You're
it?
meeting with the president?
I can't remember what the schedule is. It's possible.
You can't remember if you're meeting with the president.
I'm being very polite, and I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing this afternoon, but I can assure you that...
But this is the free speech hearing. You're not going to tell me what you're doing this afternoon?
Free speech is one thing, discretion's quite another, too.
Okay. All right, so you're leaving to have lunch with the president. So, Mr. Farage, I have a question. Have you heard about the Epstein thing that's going on here?
I have.
You have? What do you think about it?
I'm not going to give comment on anything happening in America. I'm here as a witness.
Perfect.
I'm here as a witness.
I'm
here as a witness for what is happening in the United Kingdom and in the European
Perfect.
continent.
Let me just go through it. So it's been 9 months, right, since we've been meeting in these hearings. We've not had Pam Bondi here, even though we have jurisdiction over the Department of Justice. Not Dan Bondi.
The gentleman yield.
Not Kash Patel. I will 100%. We'll go back and forth. Let me just do my thing.
Okay.
Well,
I'm just going to correct. Kash Patel's coming in 2. I'll give you an extra 10 seconds. Kash Patel, the director of FBI, is coming in 2 weeks, and the Attorney General's coming in 4 weeks.
fantastic. But still, we're not doing that this week. The week we're having votes on the Epstein thing. So, Pam Bondi gives the influencers, these Republican influencers, a binder. It says Part 1 of the Epstein Files. No one of you saw it. It was quite spectacular. The Attorney General then says the Epstein list is on her desk. Then DOJ issues a memo, says there is no list. Then, do you have any questions about any of that? We've had no hearings on any of that at all. That, the list is on my desk, then there is no list. Then we gave binders to Republican influencers. This committee said no questions on any of how that transpired at the Department of Justice. Then hold on.
Well, it sounds like you're going to in the next few weeks. So that's a jolly good thing.
Mr. Farage, we can talk soon, but not yet. Okay.
Right.
So then the president comes out and says the whole thing's a hoax. He blasts his own base. He blames Barack Obama. I mean, he hasn't been president for a very long time. Republicans then in committee vote against the release in the Rules Committee. Then Republicans refuse to go back in the Rules Committee because they're getting blasted for their vote, getting crushed by their own base. Congress leaves a day early. Then the administration sends the Deputy Attorney General to meet with Maxwell in jail. He happens to be Trump's former personal attorney. She says something favorable about the president. Miraculously, she gets transferred to a minimum security prison. The president starts talking about how he has the right to pardon her if he wanted to. The leaks to the Wall Street Journal then stop. We come back from break. We have the Massey petition. Comer does a document dump where 97% of these documents are already public. How long has he had those documents? Why hasn't he released them for the last 6 weeks? Does it the day of the vote. Then Republicans drop a non-binding resolution trying to kill the Massey discharge petition. The White House said passing the Massey discharge petition is a hostile act. Wow. That's a lot of distraction and deflection and misinformation. Wait, passing a discharge petition to release the Epstein Files, the White House said would be a hostile act. Nope, we have no questions about that. But why? Why is it that we're spending so much political capital to keep this list from coming out? You think the list should come out? You think we should know the people who dealt with Mr. Epstein, Mr. Farage?
I thought I was coming to a hearing on free speech, not process.
Oh, but listen, but here's the
And
good...
that sounds like you're discussing process.
No. Do you think the list should come out?
I have no opinion on it. I don't know
So,
at all.
so we have victims that were sexually abused by potentially people in power, and we don't know who's on the list.
I'm very happy.
Hold on, Mr.
discuss that
Farage.
with
We don't
you
know who's on the list. We don't
another
know.
time.
We don't know who's on the list. We don't know if the president is or is not. I'm not going to say he is or isn't. I'm just going to say these are weird behaviors. We don't know that there aren't other people in Congress that are on the list, right? We have no idea. Do you think the list should come out? You think people in power should be held to account for these victims who have been sexually abused and assaulted? You think the list should come out?
I think that I'm very happy to come to a different hearing where you talk about legal process.
Okay.
But today,
Will the gentleman yield for a quick question?
I will stick to
Were
free
you
speech.
aware that he has already called for the Epstein file to be released? It has been reported that he has called for it to be released.
Oh yeah, right here, just to refresh your memory.
Yeah, but it's, yeah,
I
yes.
happen to have this.
But that's not
How
what
random.
But that is not. Look, you can ask me if you like about
Do you agree
social
with
security
yourself?
policy.
Do you agree with yourself?
We are here to discuss free speech.
Hold on, it's awkward for your lunch after this? Do you agree with yourself?
No, it isn't at all.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'm just curious. This committee has jurisdiction over the
Gentleman's
Department of
time.
Justice.
Yeah.
Why have we allowed Comer to cover this up for the last couple of months?
As I said,
why is this committee not
I
taking
said 6 weeks
jurisdiction?
ago that we will have the FBI director in, we will have the attorney general in, and we are doing that in 2 weeks. You can ask you can go through that whole list. That whole list, you can do whatever you want to do with, I got lots of questions for the FBI director, including the whistleblower who came forward and told him that Adam Schiff leaked classified information. I want to ask him about that as well as the issues you all want to ask him about. That's why he's coming, so we can ask all these questions and follow the process, as Mr. Farage just talked about.
Mr.
The
Chairman,
gentleman
I
from Virginia.
unanimous consent.
Unanimous consent?
I'd like to enter the political article into the record that Mr. Farage said the Epstein file should be released.
Without objection. The gentleman from Virginia is recognized.
I thank the chairman. I want to talk about censorship tools that are being used by Europe and protectionist measures that have major consequences for U.S. companies and free expression.
And what unfolded from there left even seasoned lawmakers stunned. The hearing began as routine, discussions about speech laws, media oversight, procedural issues. But then one congressman changed the tone completely. He leaned forward and asked the witness, a British delegate named Mr. Frock, a simple question: where are you going after this hearing? At first it sounded like small talk, but the tone shifted fast. The witness stumbled, hesitated, then said, "I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing this afternoon." That's when the congressman dropped the question that froze the room. "Are you meeting with the president?" The witness smirked, deflected, and said, "Discretion is quite another thing." It was supposed to be a joke, but everyone knew something was off, because what came next wasn't about lunch plans. It was about a list and a Department of Justice that seemed desperate to pretend it didn't exist. 9 months of hearings, not one appearance from the Attorney General, not one explanation from the department that supposedly holds the Epstein records. Yet somehow influential political allies, online influencers, partisan personalities, were given glossy binders labeled Part 1, The Epstein Files. Inside were fragments, names, references, but only the ones someone wanted the public to see. Then came the contradiction. The DOJ issued a memo claiming there is no list, so how could it be on her desk? Then suddenly nowhere. That's the kind of contradiction that makes even seasoned investigators pause. Because when a government can't keep its own story straight, it usually means there's more than just confusion, there's control. The congressman pressed on. "We've had no hearings on any of this," he said. "No questions about how this happened, no accountability." And that's when the conversation turned from uncomfortable to explosive. Behind closed doors, things were moving fast. Same week that hearing took place, votes were being held to decide whether the Epstein files should finally be released to the public. And suddenly everything started happening at once. The administration began calling the case a distraction. A new directive came down. The focus should shift away from the files entirely. Lawmakers who had once demanded transparency went silent, and that silence wasn't coincidence, it was survival. Then came the dominoes. A high-ranking justice official who once worked as a personal attorney for the nation's leader quietly visited Ghislaine Maxwell in prison. Within days she was moved, transferred from a high-security facility to a minimum-security prison, and just like that the leaks stopped. No more documents, no new names, no accountability. Instead, the official narrative became, "It's over. There's nothing to see here." But if that were true, why did the department still treat public demands for transparency as a hostile act? And why did the timeline match every time pressure rose, only to be diffused by another sudden move? That's where the story takes a strange turn. The illusion of transparency. After weeks of public outrage, a lawmaker introduced a petition to force the full release of the Epstein records. In response, the DOJ did what looked, on the surface, like cooperation. They dumped a stack of documents online. The problem? 97% of it was already public. Old court filings, recycled exhibits, outdated press clippings. Nothing new, nothing that explained the missing list or the contradictions about its existence. And as soon as the public realized the document dump was smoke and mirrors, another motion appeared, a non-binding resolution aimed at killing the release effort altogether. The administration even called the release a hostile act. Think about that. Making information public about one of the worst abuse networks in history was branded hostile, not toward victims, not toward justice, but toward power. It was clear this wasn't about procedure, it was about control of narrative, deciding what gets revealed, and when. To understand why this matters, you have to think of oversight like a chain of custody. Every file, every record, every binder tells a story about who held power and who still does. When an attorney general says the list is on my desk and the DOJ later says no list exists, that's not confusion, that's a custody problem. Who moved it? Who has access? Who decided what gets shared? Because when files go to influencers instead of investigators, that's not transparency, that's damage control disguised as disclosure. It's the political version of misdirection. You point one hand toward openness while the other hand quietly hides what matters. That's why public trust erodes, because when the story changes every week, the truth stops being a fact, it becomes a weapon. And in that chaos, one group suffers most: the survivors. For those who lived through Epstein's network of abuse, every delay feels like betrayal. They were promised justice, cooperation, closure. Instead, they get headlines, contradictions, and procedural excuses. Each time a new memo claims no list exists, each time a politician calls the issue a hoax, survivors are forced to relive the silence that protected their abusers for years. And while some officials insist secrecy is to protect privacy or national security, survivors hear something else: we still don't want to talk about it. There are legitimate reasons certain details can't be public. Ongoing cases, classified investigations, the need to protect victims' identities, those are real, but they don't explain why the story keeps changing. You can protect survivors without protecting enablers. You can redact victims' names and still release the names of those who profited, covered, or participated. The issue isn't privacy, it's selective secrecy, and when secrecy serves power more than people, it stops being law. It becomes manipulation. So what would real oversight look like? It's not complicated. Start with a secure congressional briefing, one that gives cleared lawmakers access to every unredacted file under strict confidentiality. Then create a chain of custody log that shows exactly who accessed what and when. No mystery, no "it was on my desk." Finally, appoint an independent investigator, an inspector general or special counsel, to verify that no documents were hidden, altered, or politically manipulated. If everything is above board, transparency will prove it. If not, the record will speak for itself. Because here's the truth: the American people can handle facts. What they can't handle is being lied to by the very institutions meant to protect them. When the government story keeps changing, it's not confusion, it's a signal that someone's still protecting someone. And as long as that's true, the victims remain unheard, and justice remains unfinished. That's why this moment matters. Because this hearing, this awkward, chaotic, seemingly meaningless hearing, might be one of the few cracks where light is starting to get in. One lawmaker, tired of excuses, finally said it out loud. Why is this committee spending so much political capital to keep this list from coming out? That question deserves an answer. Not next year, not after another election, now. And here's where you, watching this, actually matter. Because every time the public stops paying attention, the file stays closed a little longer. Every time outrage fades, another binder quietly disappears into someone's desk drawer. But pressure works. Every major leak, every accountability breakthrough, every truth that finally came to light, happened because people refused to move on. So don't move on. Don't let this story fade into the next news cycle. If you care about transparency, demand it. Call your representatives and ask them to hold the hearing that's been delayed for months. Ask for the secure briefing that was promised, and support the survivor-led organizations still fighting for full disclosure. Because the truth doesn't belong to any administration or political party, it belongs to the people who were promised justice and never got it. This story isn't over. Behind every binder, every memo, every carefully worded denial, there's a paper trail, and it's only a matter of time before someone finds it. But for that to happen, people need to keep watching, sharing, and asking questions. So if you've stayed with me this far, do one thing right now: hit that like button so more people see this. Subscribe if you believe the truth should never be classified, and drop a comment below. Tell me if you think the files will ever actually come out. Because one thing's certain, they can't hide the truth forever, not from a public that's still paying attention.